know that incredibly specific anxiety when you are just staring at your phone and
Mm.
you're watching those three little gray typing bubbles pop up and then they disappear and pop up again and then just nothing?
Oh, yeah. Absolute torture.
Right. And suddenly you realize you've spent the last, I don't know, 48 hours trying to decode a single, completely ambiguous text message. One that just says something like, hey, been crazy busy, let's catch up soon, coupled with like an upside down smiley face.
It really is the defining exhaustion of modern dating. I mean, we have more ways to communicate instantly than at any other point in human history. And yet somehow we've engineered entirely new, highly sophisticated ways to be profoundly unclear with one another.
It's incredibly draining, and that is exactly what we are getting into today. We're looking at a fascinating set of data and analysis for this deep dive, and it actually comes from a somewhat unexpected place.
Really unexpected.
Yeah, Weddizer. Now, if you are familiar with Weddizer, you know they are a brand entirely dedicated to weddings, bridal content, the ultimate level of commitment. So why on earth are they publishing deep dive research on toxic, non-committal dating trends?
Well, because you cannot reach the altar if you get perpetually trapped in the dating purgatory they've mapped out here. I mean, Weddizer's data essentially argues that if your ultimate goal is definitive, clear partnership like that absolute I choose you commitment, you have to know how to navigate the murky, non-committal waters of early dating.
Without losing your mind in the process.
Exactly, without losing your mind.
Which is such a smart framing. So our mission today is to equip you with the tools to spot two of the most emotionally draining dating behaviors mapped out in this research. We're talking about breadcrumbing and the slow fade.
Yes, two absolute classics, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, right. But more importantly, we are going to look at the psychology behind why people do this, why it works so well on us, and how you can protect your peace. So, okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the behavior that relies on keeping you actively guessing. What exactly is the mechanism behind breadcrumbing?
So, at its core, breadcrumbing is the act of sending sporadic, non-committal signals to keep someone emotionally invested. But, and this is key, without any real intention of actual commitment.
So we are talking about like those random Instagram likes on a Tuesday morning.
Right, yeah. Or a superficial compliment out of nowhere, or even that nostalgic text after weeks of silence. It is just the illusion of forward momentum.
It's like you're being fed just enough attention to keep you looking at your phone, but never enough to actually sustain a relationship. It really reminds me of feeding a stray cat just enough so it stays on your porch, but never actually letting it inside the house.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
You're keeping them around, but you aren't offering shelter.
Right. But I really want to dig into the psychology here because, I mean, are the people doing this sitting in a dark room maliciously plotting how to ruin someone's week? Because it definitely feels malicious when you are on the receiving end.
Oh, it completely feels malicious. But what's fascinating here is what the data actually shows us.
Yeah.
It's rarely about mustache-twirling villainy, you know? To understand breadcrumbing, you really have to look at attachment theory.
Okay.
Often, the people engaging in this behavior have an avoidant attachment style, coupled with some deep underlying emotional deficits. First off, they have a massive craving for validation. They just want the ego stroke of knowing you are still on the hook.
Like they just want to know they still have access to you.
Precisely. Access without obligation. But here is the massive contradiction. They are terrified of the emotional enmeshment required to actually build a real relationship.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they fear loneliness, but they actively avoid vulnerability. So breadcrumbing becomes their subconscious solution.
Right. So they hover in this safe, superficial middle ground.
Exactly. They get the warmth of your attention, but they never have to pay the emotional cost of being in a true partnership.
Okay, well, that explains their side of it perfectly. But why is it so devastatingly effective on the person receiving the breadcrumbs? Because, I mean, I know incredibly smart, secure people who have completely lost their minds trying to figure out a breadcrumber.
Well, that comes down to how our brains process intermittent reinforcement.
Intermittent reinforcement.
Yeah, it is the exact same psychological mechanism that makes a slot machine so addictive. Think about it. If you pulled a slot machine lever and won $1 every single time, you'd eventually get bored and just walk away.
Right, there's no thrill.
And if you ever won anything, you'd quit immediately because it's a waste of money. But because the reward is unpredictable, you never know if the next text is going to be incredibly charming or just absolute silence. It creates a dopamine loop.
Oh, wow.
Your brain literally becomes addicted to the unpredictability itself.
So every time they vanish, you feel this massive anxiety spike. And the moment they finally text back, you get a huge hit of dopamine masquerading as relief.
Exactly. Masquerading as relief is a great way to put it.
That is wild. I mean, you were basically being biologically hacked.
You really are, and that's why it feels so impossibly hard to walk away. You aren't just fighting your feelings for the person, you are fighting a neurological reward cycle.
Okay, so breadcrumbing is an active choice to keep someone hooked for validation. But what happens when, say, the person's ego is satisfied? Or they get scared and they actually want to escape without dealing with the mess? Because, I mean, they rarely just send a text saying, hey, I'm done.
No, because that would require accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, they deploy the second behavior Weddizer outlines in their research, the slow fade.
Ah, the slow fade.
Yeah. If ghosting is a sudden, shocking disappearance, the slow fade is a gradual, insidious withdrawal over time. It's essentially the art of quietly exiting someone's life without ever actually having to say goodbye.
And the signs are so subtle at first, right? The replies don't stop entirely, but, a text that used to take 5 minutes to get a response now takes 5 hours,
Right.
then a full day. You send a really thoughtful question and you get back like, haha, yeah, or just a generic reaction emoji. And suddenly you realize you are the only one initiating the conversations.
Yes. And the excuses start piling up too.
Mm.
Oh, work is just so crazy right now, or I'm just really overwhelmed this week.
Always the crazy work week.
Always. The emotional connection plummets, but they maintain just enough plausible deniability to make you question your own perception of what's actually happening.
Wait, let me play devil's advocate for a second here, because I've definitely backed away from someone slowly in the past because I genuinely didn't want to hurt their feelings with a blunt rejection. Isn't a slow fade sometimes just the kinder option? Like you're trying to let them down easy without a dramatic confrontation?
I mean, it's very common to tell yourself that you're being kind or polite. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the research strongly argues that this is actually a weaponization of the social contract.
A weaponization of the social contract. Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, think about it. As a society, we are deeply conditioned to be polite, to not cause a scene, and especially in dating, to avoid looking crazy or needy. The person doing the slow fade subconsciously exploits that conditioning.
Oh, man.
They use your own good manners against you. They know that if they pull back just 10% at a time, you probably won't call out their subtle withdrawal because you don't want to seem dramatic or overly demanding.
Oh, wow. So they're relying on my fear of seeming needy to cover up their inability to just communicate honestly. So it's not kindness at all. It's cowardice masked as manners.
It is entirely about their comfort, not your feelings. Because the reality is, a clean break actually provides closure. It hurts, sure, but you have the definitive information you need to start grieving and moving on.
Right. You know where you stand.
Exactly.
Hmm.
The slow fade traps the recipient in a purgatory of self-doubt.
Hmm.
You start analyzing your own behavior instead. Did I text too much? Should I give them space? Are they really just busy?
Which naturally leads us to the psychological fallout. Whether you are being actively breadcrumbed or passively slow faded, both of these behaviors drive you to the exact same destination, total emotional exhaustion.
Under exhaustion, yeah.
The Weddizer data highlights the severe impact this has on mental health. We're talking deep confusion, chronic overthinking, and just a total erosion of self-esteem.
And we really need to look at why that happens. Your brain is essentially a meaning-making machine. It desperately wants to solve puzzles and find patterns to keep you safe.
Oh.
When you are dealing with chronic ambiguity, someone is basically handing your brain a jigsaw puzzle where half the pieces are missing and the picture on the box keeps changing every day.
So what does this all mean for us functionally? I always think about it like a smartphone searching for a Wi-Fi signal in a total dead zone.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, like it
Right.
drains your battery incredibly fast because your system is constantly sending out pings looking for a connection that just isn't there. You're exhausted because your brain is operating in this high alert background search mode 24/7.
That is a phenomenal analogy because it highlights the actual biological cost.
Hmm.
Uncertainty was one of the absolute biggest stress triggers in human relationships.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Our nervous systems are not built to handle chronic ambiguity. By forcing you to live in the maybe, these behaviors put you in a low-grade state of fight or flight. You never know if you are safe or if the connection is secure.
And I think we really need to pause here and validate anyone listening who might be in the middle of this right now.
Absolutely.
Because if you're listening to this and realizing you are the one always initiating the texts or, waiting around for scraps of attention, your first instinct is probably shame. You might feel foolish. But what this research highlights is that this dynamic is intentionally engineered to confuse you. It is not a flaw in your intuition. It is a fundamental flaw in their communication.
Well said. The shame belongs to the person exploiting the connection, not the person trying to foster it in good faith.
So, how do we move from defense to proactive observation? How do we catch these patterns before we get so emotionally invested that our battery is completely drained? The Weddizer research points to a few core concepts we need to internalize, starting with the baseline of consistency.
Yes, consistency is the absolute bedrock of any healthy dynamic. What you are looking for early on is whether their presence in your life is steady or if it's purely circumstantial.
Circumstantial, maybe what exactly?
Meaning, if someone is only showing up when it's highly convenient for them, like late at night, or when their other plans fall through, or when they clearly just need a quick ego boost, that inconsistency is the behavior.
It's not a phase.
Exactly. It isn't a phase. It's who they are in relation to you.
And that ties directly into the next major concept from the guide: separating actions from words. I feel like this is where so many incredibly smart people get tripped up.
Oh, completely. Because someone can be remarkably charming via text. They can make beautiful promises about future dates or trips or how much they like you.
But the reality check is that promises are completely meaningless without follow-through.
You have to train yourself to evaluate a person based almost exclusively on what they actually do, rather than the narrative they spin. If they say they can't wait to see you, but they haven't asked you out or made a definitive plan in 3 weeks.
Their action is not asking you out.
Precisely. That is the reality of the situation, no matter how flowery the text messages are.
And your body usually knows this before your brain does, right?
Mm.
The data heavily emphasizes trusting your intuition.
Yes. Your gut is usually picking up on these microsignals long before your conscious brain puts all the puzzle pieces together.
Like the subtle shifts in tone or the minor inconsistencies.
Exactly. If you feel constantly anxious instead of secure, you have to trust that feeling. Your body's trying to tell you something.
And this brings us right back to that Weddizer standard. Think about what that ultimate level of commitment actually requires. It demands absolute clarity. It demands mutual effort and emotional availability. You are literally making vows.
Right. And you cannot build a wedding on breadcrumbs. It is structurally impossible.
Structurally impossible. If that level of secure partnership is your ultimate goal, then these early dating red flags have to be immediate deal breakers. Allowing ambiguity to slide in the first month just sets the stage for a relationship built on a foundation of anxiety.
Exactly. Recognizing these patterns early and choosing to walk away isn't about being cynical or jaded. It is a vital, necessary tool to save yourself massive amounts of time and emotional energy. You are aggressively protecting your peace.
Which brings us to the hardest part. I mean, spotting the behavior in retrospect is one thing, but what do you actually do when you realize you are currently in the trap?
Right, when it's happening right now.
Yeah, you're actively being breadcrumbed, or you can feel the slow fade happening in real time. Because the natural human instinct when you feel someone slipping away is to run after them, right? To try and fix it or figure out what you did wrong.
Well, the Weddizer Guide actually argues for the exact opposite approach. It outlines a strategy for exiting these dynamics with complete grace. And the very first thing you have to do is acknowledge the pattern. Stop making excuses for them.
Okay, so stop telling yourself they are just busy with work.
Right. And then you have to let their withdrawal dictate your response. When someone starts pulling away, do not chase them.
Man, that is so counterintuitive, though.
It is, but chasing someone who is executing a slow fade only lowers your value in the dynamic. It signals that you are willing to accept less than you deserve.
It's kind of like chasing a slow fader is like running down the tracks after a departing train. It lowers your value, and it's dangerous to your dignity. You just need to stand confident on the platform and wait for the next train.
That is a great way to visualize it. You have to let their actions guide your response. If they step back, you do not step forward to close the gap. You hold your ground.
But holding your ground doesn't necessarily mean just vanishing yourself.
Right.
Because the research actually provides a script for how to address this clearly, and it's brilliant in its simplicity.
It really is. If you want to force clarity, you simply state your standard. You send a message saying, I'm looking for consistent communication and clarity. If that's not something you can offer, I understand.
Oof, that is so powerful because it removes all the emotion and the accusation. You aren't attacking them. You aren't calling them a coward or a jerk.
No, you're simply stating your standard and giving them the opportunity to meet it. And if they can't, you have your answer.
And then what?
And then you set your boundaries. If you send that text and they disappear for a week and then suddenly text you, "Hey, stranger,"
Yeah,
on a Friday night, you are under no obligation to reply.
you just let it go.
Yes, you do not have to engage with behavior that doesn't meet the standard you just clearly communicated.
I think a lot of people struggle with that because honestly, when someone breadcrumbs you for 3 months, the instinct isn't grace.
Oh, no, definitely not.
The instinct is to send a scorched earth, 5-paragraph text message detailing exactly what a terrible person they are. I mean, why shouldn't we just get angry and call them out on their weaponized politeness?
Well, this raises an important question. Why does grace even matter here? Because the grace isn't for them. The grace is entirely for you.
Really?
Yeah. Responding gracefully doesn't mean staying silent or being a pushover. It means acting with self-respect. When you blow up, when you send that angry paragraph, you are still handing them your energy.
Ah, I see. You are still showing them that their inconsistent behavior has control over your emotional state.
Precisely. You're still giving them the validation they were looking for in the first place. Grace protects your own emotional health. It demonstrates incredible maturity. And most importantly, stepping back quietly allows you to move forward without any regret or embarrassment about how you behaved.
Because you don't need to argue with someone to prove your worth.
Exactly. Your worth is a pre-existing condition.
Your worth is a pre-existing condition. That is the absolute takeaway here. If you want to avoid these toxic traps entirely, you have to require consistent communication.
You do?
You have to demand mutual effort. It cannot be a one-way street where you are doing all the emotional heavy lifting. You need emotional availability and fundamental respect for your time. Anything less than that simply isn't worth the battery drain.
You deserve genuine interest, not mixed signals. You have to trust that when you hold firm to these boundaries and refuse to entertain breadcrumbs, the right connection will eventually meet you with the exact same energy you are putting out into the world.
Exactly. You cannot build the Weddizer dream without the foundational building blocks of respect and consistency. So we've spent this entire deep dive analyzing how to spot breadcrumbing and the slow fade from other people. We've armed you with the psychology behind it and the tools to defend yourself. But before we go, we want to leave you with a slightly different angle to mull over.
A look in the mirror, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. As you reflect on your own dating history, have you ever unknowingly been the breadcrumber?
Hmm.
Have you ever slowly faded out of someone's life, relying on their politeness not to call you out, leaving them confused and anxious simply because you were too afraid to just do the hard thing and tell them you weren't interested?
It's a very uncomfortable question, but an absolutely necessary one if we really want to fundamentally change the culture of modern dating.
It really is. Something to think about the next time you draft a text you know you don't really mean. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Take care of yourselves, and remember, don't settle for the crumbs.